You're listening to the Otis Jiry channel.
Chapter 17 Confrontation. Deep beneath Duncan's living room, a passageway led down to the river tunnel. Duncan led the way, followed by the professor, along the rocky tunnel floor, swirling with crystal-clear water about a foot deep, each person lighting the way with a powerful torch. The two women were next in line, with George and Brother Dawson following. On Duncan's second visit to the Halloween chamber, he had marked the wall at every 30 steps. Passing 50 markers would place them at the chamber's entrance. "That's 25 markers. Did you make it that, Prof?" asked Duncan. 25 it is, halfway." Then, just beyond the 45th marker, above the sound of the rushing water, they heard the echoing chatter of the corvids further down the tunnel as they arrived at the chamber from the witch's cave, as they had done at this time every year for centuries. "It's a scary sound if I ever heard one," remarked Gale. With just over 40 yards to go, the noise of the evil birds became overwhelming, as the excitement of their anticipation at regaining their human form once again became imminent. Soon their frenetic, flapping shadows were visible to the group on the far side tunnel wall opposite the chamber entrance, projected by the dim light emanating from its roof, shaft, opening through the mausoleum wall as midday approached high above. With hushed voices, the group replayed their well-practiced routine of preparing the flamethrowers for action and putting on their oxygen masks. "How long before they settle down into their positions, Duncan?" "It's now 10 minutes to midday when the portal opens, so it won't be long, Prof." Soon after that, the chamber fell silent, and Duncan held out a small mirror to see what was happening. The corvids had positioned themselves at the bottom of the 4 alcoves and had become almost comatose with concentration as they directed their collective minds to summon the demon of revenge to tear through the membrane separating their two worlds. Duncan signaled to the others to be ready on the valves as they took positions on one side of the entrance. Rumblings could be felt through the rocky floor, increasing in intensity to a terrible, pulsating drone resonating through the tunnel. "What's that god-awful noise, Duncan?" said an anxious Gale. "Oh, I didn't tell you about that. It's the demon on its way." "We've heard that sound before in the village on Halloween. We thought it must be coming up through the ground. In other parts of the world it's commonly known and called the Devil's Drone," added Duncan, "and not only on Halloween." "You mean there are other portals?" "Too many. You wouldn't believe it, but that's another story." A faint wisp of greenish-gray miasma appeared through the floor's central aperture, quickly becoming an upward streaming plume of filth. Inhaling deeply, the corvids violently shuddered as their bodies morphed from avian to human form, gradually increasing with size until they eventually filled their alcoves. The miasma quickly changed into the form of the chosen demon as it became more solid in form, changing to a deep olive. The Bennets blinked across at each other, and Daniel spoke. "We meet again, brothers and sister." Alice was a haggard, stooping crone whose stony jet-black evil eyes glanced from one brother to the next. The 3 brothers acknowledged their sister's presence. "Welcome, sister," they uttered, one after the other, as the demon suddenly disintegrated into billions of miasmids, each an evil entity with the power to transmit and infect satanic insanity to their hosts, like some airborne virus. The team were taken by surprise at the unexpected pace of events. Masked and ready, the professor, Duncan, and Brother Dawson took up their pre-planned positions just inside the entrance, with the weapons' pilot lights lit. George and the 2 women stood behind, ready to take their place when their tanks were emptied. "Now!" yelled Duncan, His nervous fingers pulled at the valves, releasing a maelstrom of streaming fire directly at the Bennett siblings. Unable to move amidst their ritual summoning of the demon, their tortured screams of human mortality echoed around the Halloween chamber. Rose caught a glimpse of Alice staring intensely at her and felt a strange sensation, like waves of electric shocks passed through her head and down into her body, but said nothing. The copious production of miasmids had already flowed out past the team and on down the river tunnel to beneath the abbey, as the hideous, haunting, pulsing drone which had shaken their body organs finally faded away. The widening eyes of the screaming, flailing Bennets reflected their horror at the fiery onslaught as the remaining three assassins took over to finally reduce them to the streaming blood of cooking living meat, as thick black grease, the very essence of their evil, accumulated and drained down the chamber walls to pool in syrup-like slurry around their collapsed and charred remains. Stepping back from their successful task into the mountainside of the tunnel entrance, they became aware that the flames had ignited the demon's volatile outpouring of miasmids and had flashed down the tunnel to beneath the abbey. The screams of the now deceased Bennett clan were replaced by the sound of hissing gases escaping their blackened, distorted corpses and the cracking of bones. Duncan frantically gesticulated for everyone to retreat back up the tunnel the way they had come. Without the oxygen masks and cylinders, they would not have survived. Thankful the oxygen hadn't ignited in their masks, they were able to move faster without the now abandoned heavy flamethrowers. The women and Brother Dawson led the way back to Duncan's cave with a blaze of triumphant torchlight. Grimsfell Abbey erupted violently in flames as the burning miasmids traveled up through the ancient wooden shafts used once to bucket-haul water from the river below. Being midday, almost everyone was assembled in the dining hall next to the vast opening windows, much loved in the summertime, and looking out from the side of this more recent addition to the abbey, built after the original fire. All escaped to stand and watch the abbey's fiery demise. The old part of the abbey, with its library, which had survived the ancient fire, was now in its turn being consumed. Camler and his accomplice Thomas weren't so lucky. They were high above the abbey roof planning how to dispose of the professor and Brother Dawson. Camler, wearing his raven robes, was convinced of his powers, which he believed gave him an overwhelming advantage of immortality over those without the special powers endowed upon him from the dark side. His beloved Vril was about to kill him. He was last seen from below by the assembled monks and village workers as he was consumed by flames, igniting the very feathered robes he thought would protect him from harm. This time his energetic flapping only fanned the flames, hastening his end, and afforded him no flight as he plummeted earthwards to a sickening end. The evil Thomas was never found. The exhausted team spent time recovering with a welcome addition of a Duncan Tea Brew-Up Special, illuminated by the remaining torchlight. No one knew the abbey was burning. Gale returned after hoping for a breath of fresh air outside the cave entrance. "There's an awfully strong smell of smoke out there. Do you think the old well at the chamber acted as a chimney?" "Very likely," agreed Duncan. The weary but happy group eventually made their way back down to the abbey, soon aware of the source of the smoke. The abbey was well alight with the entire population of Grimsfell in attendance. It soon became apparent that the burning evil miasmic vril had traveled all the way into the depths of the abbey, this time devouring itself along with its abbey host, instead of infecting it. Cheers and clapping greeted the returned heroes, and they were told of a bizarre event of a man dressed as a raven who had fallen screaming from the roof. The crowd had dragged his body away from the flames and extinguished his feathered robe. Charlie Benson knew who it was. Pulling away the smoking, monstrous, raven-beaked headpiece, revealed a very dead Hans Kammler, also known as Abbot Gregory. Back at the Witch's Brew, an excited Maria approached the professor. "Now I know Hans Kammler is dead. I want to tell you about the last secret I mentioned back at Rose's house. In fact, there are two. Shall we talk in my room, Maria?" "Yes, of course." The professor excused the untidy room he shared with Brother Dawson over the months and cleared the armchair. "Hitler escaped with us in the Bell Haunebu and stayed for some years hiding in the Abbey attic before he dare venture out. He was going mad and felt trapped, so he grew his hair and beard long to disguise his features and spent his time exploring the villages around here." "But you said he was headed for Argentina." "That was a cover. It was the very place he was expected to have gone because of all of the Nazi sympathizers in Peron. So he decided to come with us." "My goodness! You're certainly full of surprises, Miss Orsich. So Adolf Hitler is here with us? Where exactly?" "I don't know, Professor. He's become a recluse somewhere nearby because he occasionally visited the Abbey to see Hans and I, although he spoke very little to me." "What is the second secret, Maria?" "He brought the Grail with him. The famed Holy Grail. At least he was utterly convinced it was." "What exactly is this object? I think of it as a chalice." "It is simply a large black stone or crystal which has very powerful magical properties. I think of it as a solid, condensed form of vril." "So he carries this around with him, then?" "No, it was hidden inside the black altar in the chamber behind the Abbey crypt." How do you know this, Maria?" "I was there.